now to the second portion of the discussion. These are more rapid fire sort of questions for you, just to dig down deeper into things maybe we didn't discuss. But I'm curious, what is the best advice you've ever received?
You know what it is? Actually, it's something that a professor of mine told me in college. Never ask somebody to write you a letter of recommendation if you don't know that they will write you a good letter of recommendation. And I give that advice to other people also. So it's like knowing your mentors, knowing what people will say about you. And that's part of that is knowing the other person. Okay.
I will say on a tangent to that, I will say that I worked with someone and they were asked to write a letter by a medical student that they didn't know well, and they happened to tell me that they're going to write a bad letter. And not that I personally think that's the way they should have approached the situation, but their rationale for doing this is exactly like what you're describing. They're like, they don't know me well enough. If they don't know the quality of the letter I'm writing, they shouldn't have asked. Personally, I would have just said, "Hey, I don't know you well enough." I think, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's solid advice. Yeah. Moving forward, what advice would you give to someone, or what's the best piece of advice you'd give to someone?
Well, I do wish I had worked out that relationship. So don't turn your back on something before you've actually decided that you're taking the right next step. I guess it's a way of saying don't be rash and don't burn your bridges. Uh,
Relationships are tricky though. Sometimes, like in the moment, you feel like you're making a rational, conscious decision. And then even if you have regrets, like either they've moved on or life has moved on, and the difference is too great to draw a bridge. How would you?
well, I mean, I would say as a corollary of that is don't make a decision if you're not in a good place. So, to take an example from my life, um, when I got divorced, I wasn't in a good place. And I was thinking, I'm going to quit this job. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. I'm going to do the other thing, blah, blah, blah. And somebody said, you know what? You should just sit down and let your life normalize again and then decide what you want to do. And that's an important thing to know. And again, that's a part of not making rash decisions. I think it's fun to make life-changing decisions, can be, but make sure you're in a good place when you make them. And then my other thing I tell everybody is, look, you don't know where you don't like where you are now, you don't like your job or your something, something. You can do anything for a year, renewable for up to 5 years. And if in 5 years you still don't like it, then you've given it the test. But give it a year and maybe renew.
I like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then what advice would you give yourself as a child, adolescent, and as an adult if you can go back in time?
Oh, I would say stop worrying about being ostracized. Life gets better as you get older.
Okay. For all of them, it would be the same piece of advice.
um, it's certainly yeah, I think so. In fact, what I've found is I really enjoy being in my 60s.
Okay.
I'm almost in my 70s, and I can say a lot of things and get away with it. So as your edit button stops working, enjoy it.
I like that. I like,
And there are people who are pessimists and there are people who are optimists. I like to be an optimist. I have one other piece of advice for people. Learn how to be happy and nice. Because when you're old and you're in a nursing home and you're happy and nice, even if you don't know who you are, all the nurses will love you and they'll take care of you. If you're mean, like those nuns from Ireland, you will not be taken care of.
That is good advice. And then professionally, what advice would you give to up and coming medical students, residents, or even pathology residents, or early in career practicing pathologists? You could break it down,
Be
or it could be lump sum. Up to you.
honest when you don't know something.
Okay,
Don't be a cowboy. Be honest.
that is good advice. I'll keep that in the back of my pocket in the coming years
Yeah.
when I start practicing. And then to family and friends.
Same thing I said about being nice.
No, that's completely fair. I mean, you can have one piece of advice that covers all of them.
It's as I'm getting older, I tell all my girlfriends and boyfriends or friends who are women and friends who are men, be nice because when you get in a habit of being nice and saying something nice back, it's not just in the moment that you feel that it will make you feel better, but if that becomes your reflexive action, it'll work for you when you need to be taken care of by somebody else. I guess it's a corollary of treat others as you want to be treated.
I like it. Um,
Uh, I would say to my children, I'm glad that I've taken them down to Rio Grande City, to parts of to parts of Mexico when I still went to Mexico, to someone's house who was essentially a peasant farmer, and sat down and ate with them so that they know that people are people and they all deserve dignity and respect.
I like it. On a complete different topic, given the choice of anyone in the world, who would you want to have dinner with, dead or alive?
Oh, I have been asked that before, and one of them would be Leonardo da Vinci.
And I don't think I've ever heard someone say that. Why?
Um, I mean, he was an artist, he was a scientist, he had drawings of how to make men fly. He studied anatomy, and it made him a better artist. I think he was an absolutely fascinating person. And I had to write a book report in school one time, and it had to be a book report from a biography. And I read his biography, and I think I was about 14, and I just about cried to think that I would never meet this person. It just, he so impressed me.
Who's someone you admire?
Oh, now I admire Barack Obama.
Why?
I think he is a kind person and a very smart person. I think he managed a presidency as the first Black president carefully. And for those people who say he didn't do enough, I say he really had a difficult um, road there. And I liked his humility. I liked the fact that he would say, "This was my fault," or he would apologize to somebody. I think those are wonderful aspects of his personality, and he's very smart and very well spoken. So I admire him a lot. Um, I I should uh, I should be fair and think of another person I admire. I admire Kay Washington, who's a GI pathologist, and I think she's one of the smartest people in the world. She does a lot of work with the CAP. She's written a lot of books on GI pathology, and she's funny, and she travels to far-flung places.
I don't think
And
I know her.
um, you could, yeah, look her up. Mary Kay Washington.
Very good.
She's and I was working with somebody with her, and I said, I think Kay Washington is one of the smartest people I know. And the other person said, "Oh, I agree, absolutely. She's very insightful, and I I tend to blurt out, "Oh, I think we should do this." And she takes this nice road into it that has everybody coming together to say, "Oh, yeah, that's a great idea." So I try to be more like her.
So similar question to the last, and it could be the same answers, but who's someone you look up to?
Someone I look up to.
Yeah.
Um, let me let me think. It's been a while. I looked up to my father. I thought he gave us great lessons in life. Um, he let us go play at, and he told me one time, he said, "You go play at this person's house, and she's not very rich, and she's known to, well, it is known that in her younger life she was a prostitute and out of a need to be, and she always looks out after my kids when my kids are in her house. I know they're safe. And there are other houses that I don't want you to go to because I don't think you're safe there. And it doesn't matter how much money they're making um, or what they're doing. And you have to understand being a prostitute in Stark County when there was no cartel activity was far fetched from being a prostitute in Chicago and New York, where you would have been controlled by perhaps mafia or something. It was a profession, and it just taught me just accept people for who they are. And I received a great compliment about him after he had died. Somebody ran into him in the grocery store, said, "You know, your father was the most honest person I have ever met." And I look up to him for that.
Would you like to be famous?
Oh, at one time I did want to be famous, but I don't think not so much anymore.
In what
I,
way?
I like being known for what I'm known for in my field. That's important to me. But uh, I don't think I'd like going outside and not being able to walk down the street without being uh, approached by somebody. Had a short period of being a celebrity. I went to China in 1988, 6 months before Tiananmen Square. And there were not very many Caucasians traveling in China at the time. In fact, I went to a city that had been closed to foreigners until 1986. So this was just 2 years later. And so when people would see us, they would pick up their kids. We were a group traveling together. They would pick up their kids to look at us. And so it was a little bit like being a celebrity. And it was kind of fun for a while. And that was Tianjin. And then subsequent to that, we went to Shanghai, where a lot of Caucasians were passing through. And we said, we kind of miss being famous now, being like coming through town and having people, pick up their kids and say, "Hey, look."
Yeah. I'm sure China's changed a lot
So
in
much.
the recent decades with their
There were no
economical growth
cars.
spurt.
There were no cars.
Yeah.
Very yeah.
What makes you nervous or anxious?
Um, the wars going on in the world, climate change.
What do you think we could do about either of those issues?
Um, I wish I had a solution, and I don't know how to take hatred out of the world. And I think a lot of climate change comes from lack of knowledge and greed. So how do you eliminate greed and hatred?
Fair enough.
If I knew, I would be out there preaching how to do it.
Yeah.
But
What would,
I'm
sorry, go
afraid.
ahead.
I am afraid for the world.
Yeah. It's looking darker some days more than others, but
Yes.
Next question. What would make a perfect day for you? Or what constitutes a perfect day for you?
For someone with broad interests, it's pretty hard to say, but I like to sleep in.
Okay.
I like good food. I like seeing new and interesting things. I like coming back home and sitting on my sofa with a blanket wrapped around me reading a book. So it goes from one extreme to the other. I
What's
love
your fa
seasons. I miss having seasons in when I'm in Houston.
what's your favorite food?
People ask me that, and I go through periods of just this is what I need to eat. I mean, the other day I made myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I just started eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day for days on end. And then all of a sudden I changed and I started eating. It's called bibimbap, which is rice with an egg, and then all kinds of little things you add to it. I love Asian food, and that really covers all of Asia. I would probably say if I had to choose a single cuisine that I liked the best, it's a toss up between my mother's, and they were actually very authentic, spaghetti and meatballs that she would make for me on my birthday every year because it's my favorite dish, spaghetti and meatballs, and a, a fish dish in Cambodia, which is kind of a not as hot as Thai, but flavorful and a little more flavorful than Vietnamese. And it's a fish with lemongrass and various things added to it, and then it's almost cooked in coconut milk, like a custard. And I usually don't like custard. I'm going to try to look up the name of it. Famous Cambodian fish dish. Famous Cambodian fish dish. What would I do without my Alzheimer's assisting it? Amok, AMOK, fish curry steamed in banana leaves. And it's so spaghetti and meatballs for breakfast and amok for dinner.
I like it.
Maybe some sushi in the middle.
As a dessert. If you were able to live to the age of 90 and retain either your mind or body of a 30-year-old for the last 60 years, which one would you choose?
Oh, that one's really tough.
I know.
I think I would say mind. But I've told people if I say, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to go spend 6 months living in Portugal or someplace, and they'll say, well, aren't you worried about access to medical care? You've lived in major cities with major medical centers. And I said, at a certain point, if I'm not going to live with body and mind sufficient to live independently, I think I'll go live in one of those places without good medical care. I know that sounds like a cop out. You should probably cut that out.
I will cut it out. Um,
I don't promote suicide, but I don't promote keeping bodies alive beyond um, beyond reason. When people are dying of cancer and they're in continuing pain, or people are in a coma. I can't see myself living in a coma. So I do have a medical, what do they call those? Not power of attorney, but the end of life will. And it's like once I'm unconscious and I don't even give me an IV. Give me something for pain, but don't give me an IV.
it's funny you say that because I think Belgium is the f first and only country so far that has euthanasia, not just for people in hospice. Um, you have to meet a certain requirement, but you can get euthanized at any age as long as you have some sort of chronic illness.
Debilitating illness.
Yeah.
And I think, for those people with depression, I I think it's very difficult.
Yeah,
I don't like to promote suicide there. I will say that it's a very painful disease, and it's a true pain. But I I I don't want people to give up hope. Life, you know, it's not the destination; it's the journey.
I agree. I think in Belgium, I think for psychiatric conditions, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure for psychiatric conditions, they're like it's you're exempt. It's because it's seen as you're not within your right state of mind at that point. So you can't just say as someone with depression, they
Yeah.
won't offer you that. And I think you have to. It's fairly rigorous from my understanding. It takes like years. It's not you just go in and they're like checklist, one and done sort of deal.
Well, New Jersey will allow you, but it takes weeks and time,
Hmm.
and you have to be you, you can't delegate it to somebody else. You have to be of your right mind, and it takes a lot of signatures. There was an article in the New York Times by a woman whose sister made that decision, and and
Yeah,
um, and then you are given a cocktail of drugs.
yeah. It's a difficult decision.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I
back to
would
the
be the death penalty.
lately with the nitrogen gas, there was a bit of an uproar about it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So I don't know if I would do that either. Maybe the guillotine. Back to the questions. Do you have a secret hunch of how you will die?
Oh, I think I have a secret fear of dying in a violent death.
Is that
I
the
think
hunch or is that the fear or is it both?
fear, and so the hunch is that I will because the fear is there that I will.
Okay. Okay. Um, on a more positive note, what are you most grateful for in life?
You know, I'm I'm grateful for many things. I'm grateful for having survived life with a sense of optimism. And I don't like to think that it's a sense of being superficial or not being involved. Um, I think it's a trait that perhaps you have or don't have, depending on how you were raised and so on. And from wherever it came from, I am thankful.
I like that. If you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be?
You know, what's funny is for a long time, I wanted to go back and had been raised in Austin, Texas, until I realized what a great place Rio Grande City was. Uh, I wouldn't have gone to the Catholic Church or been taught by reject nuns. And I say that because in the third grade, our nun told us about a little girl who was so good that God couldn't leave her on this earth. And so he took her to be with her. And that's why she died. And I would go to bed at night and I would pray that I would die because that's the only way that I knew that I was actually being good. I would not do that.
Yeah, that's not
And,
good message to tell kids. I mean, I'm sure to give them the benefit of the doubt, I'm sure they're trying to rationalize it to children.
oh, no, this was one of those Mino reject
There's no benefit to be given.
pictures from Ireland.
Uh, if you could wake up tomorrow having gained one quality or ability, what would it be?
Oh, I'd like to be strong and coordinated. I'd like to have been on that baseball team and been able to not have to have somebody pinch hit my last hit every time.
Okay.
And and there was a time in my life when I really wanted to be a fireman. I mean, a time in my adult life when I really wanted to be a fireman. And I just don't think I have the agility for that. So a little more agility. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If there's a crystal ball that could tell you the truth about yourself, your life, the future, or anything else, what would you want to know?
I want to know that my children are happy.
Do you think they are?
I think right now they are, and I'm in a freeze frame place. I know that there have been times when they haven't been, and it's been very distressful. And so I want to know that they're going to be happy and have good lives.
I hope they stay happy. But like you said, life is a journey.
Life is
And
a
it's
journey.
just moments, you know. The bad is a moment, the good is a moment. They all just come and go.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you have to remind yourself when you're having the bad ones that good ones will come.
Yes. Is there something that you've dreamt of doing for a long time that you haven't done?
Go to Antarctica.
Why haven't you done it?
Um, I think it's an expensive trip. It's been I guess the expense has been most of it, but I'm saving my money.
Is the expense the real reason? Or is it, I don't want to say an excuse, but is it to cover up other reasons why? Is it
Well,
time and work commitment keeping you?
well, time and work commitment. When I had more money, time and work commitment got in the way because it's about a 6 week trip. You go and you have to go down to Argentina or Chile and leave from there.
Mhm.
And so if I was in Argentina or Chile, I would want to stop and stay there for about a month. And and I have to say, I'm also a little afraid of. Afraid's a strong word, but I get cold easily. People can't believe I'm living in Omaha. Uh, um, and and when I'm cold, I'm miserable. I feel like I'm not quite as miserable when I'm hot. I don't know why, but I'm really, uh, my feet are freezing, my hands are freezing, my face is cold. I want to cry. So
So Antarctica is even colder than the North Pole, and it's the windiest place in the world.
yeah,
It's like 60 kilometers an hour wind, and the temperature is like negative 56 Celsius. And at that point, you don't even need to do the conversion because they're on like essentially one
yeah,
degree. It's just cold.
yeah. And the coldest I've ever been in is about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 15 Celsius. And it's um it's pretty cold.
I mean, all I have to say is reach out to the people that climb Mount Everest, ask them whatever gear they're wearing,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
buy some of that.
And there's a lot of people that go to climb there that don't make it back.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've
And
heard the horror stories of the frozen bodies you see on your
yeah,
ascent.
I've decided that I don't need to climb Mount Everest.
At least the gear, just so you're warm in Antarctica. Yeah. What's your greatest accomplishment in life?
Well, I think I do have one that I'm really proud of. Is that cervical cancer kills a lot of people down in the Rio Grande Valley, and it could be eliminated by taking the HPV vaccine. And I met a group when I was doing some global medicine work who were trying to get a grant in the state of Texas to go down and introduce an HPV vaccine in the middle school system. And every time they went down to talk to one of the school boards, they were rejected. And I said, well, you know what? I am from Stark County. The town doctor dated my sister, and our parents were very good friends. My next door neighbor is the secretary of the school superintendent, and I went to school with his brother. And my former trick teacher is on the school board. I will bring y'all down for introductions. And they got the grant and they tripled the HPV vaccination rate.
Wow.
And I'm very proud of that. I'm very of having been able to do that. And I'm proud of a mathematical model of ductal carcinoma in situ that I worked on with other people. And I think that's one of the papers that I'm most proud of.
What is your most treasured memory?
Uh, Reading a book called Peter and Prue to my children.
Hmm.
And it was my father's book when he was a little boy. And I read it, then he read it to us, and then I read it to them. And I think I guess to expand upon that, one of my favorite memories from my childhood, remember I told you we didn't have television, is that my father would read to us at night. And there were three kids, and we would rotate who got to sit next to him. He would sit at the end of the sofa under the light, and then we three would rotate along the sofa. And my brother usually fell asleep early. And my father would say, "We have to go to bed because John fell asleep." And we're like, "No, no." My sister and I would be like, "Read some more." And then the next night, when we would be reading, my poor brother, we would have to catch him up on what he slept through. And those are just, that's one of my favorite memories. And then I passed that on to my children.
What is the most terrible moment or memory that you have that you can recall?
Um, I did not enjoy my year in San Francisco. And when I first moved there, I went to a park. A friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm going to be leaving in about 6 weeks to elsewhere. So I'm going to take you to all my favorite spots in San Francisco. You're new, and I'm leaving. This is perfect." So we went to Golden Gate Park, and we were going to turn down a path down to the base of the Golden Gate Bridge. And he said to me, "What time is it?" And I said, "It's 4:45." And we watched a family approach the path they were going to go down. And he said, "Oh, I need to be someplace at 5. We have to leave." And the next day I went into work, and when I picked up the newspaper, a family of four had found the body of a jogger who'd been stabbed to death on the side of the path. And she was 23 and I was 23, and she had long dark hair and I had long dark hair. And she'd come from a small town in Montana and I'd come from a small town in Texas. And she was jogging to try to lose weight, and I was always trying to do things to lose weight. I just thought that could have been me. And I don't think I slept, for weeks. I would hear just the wind blowing the pebbles outside my window, my apartment, and I would be terrified. And I was just terrified. And maybe that's one of the reasons I'm afraid I'll die a violent death. I didn't go out, and I finally left San Francisco. I just said I can't live here. I didn't renew it for a second year.
What is the moment that hurt you the most?
Oh, finding out my husband was cheating on me and had been for several years when my youngest was only about 2 or 3 when he started.
Hmm.
That was very painful.
What's a good coping mechanism for that?
Uh, it was very hard. Um, I went to see this woman, and she's no longer alive, but I wish I could find out somebody who did this. It's called Zen water therapy. And she would light aroma sources, lemongrass, eucalyptus. And she had a heated pool, and she would just squish you in the water in the pool, certain, different movements and everything. And when I came out of that pool and was driving back, I felt like the whole world looked new. I didn't recognize the road. I said, I don't even remember coming down this road before. And I guess kind of being able to get out of all the hurry and flurry and everything that calls upon you, and having a moment of somebody being able to let you relax within yourself. That was a big coping mechanism.
Do you meditate?
I don't meditate per se because to me meditation means that you've emptied your brain of thoughts, and I just can't get my brain to empty its thoughts. And I tried to do that, but I like I say, I sit and cuddle up on my sofa. I light a little incense, and then I just let my thoughts run free in free association. And believe you me, I can free associate.
Yeah, I think there's different forms of meditation, but yeah, I meditate, but maybe I meditate differently than most. I actually fixate on a thought because I feel like that helps center me and clear up my brain. Because otherwise, it's like you're saying, it's like, I'm like in this dark room and all the thoughts are just like swirling around me. But if I could just focus on that one thought, that's the only goal I have to accomplish for the 15 minutes I meditate.
There's a book called 10% Better.
Yep.
Have you read it?
Yep.
It's one of the few books I listen to on tape. And and I actually started meditating for a little while after that. Um, but I just didn't have time. When I got home, the whole house would be like, oh, no, no, no. And while I was at work, I'd have to take out a moment of time to have nobody knock on my door, no cases, nobody calling about cases. And I did it for a little while and I didn't keep up, but I liked the book. I liked the way the guy presented it as, you know, if it just made your life 10% better, would that be enough to, to do it?
Yeah. I like it. If you knew that in 1 year you would die suddenly, would you change anything about the way you're living now?
No. And I've thought about that. I've told my kids where my will is and where the living will, that's where my living will is, and where everything is. And there was a time when I didn't want to die because like I say, I think my children were going through some unhappy times, and I needed to know that they were going to be in a happy place, and they're both in a happy place. So I feel like, okay, I could die suddenly tomorrow, and it would be okay.
What does friendship mean to you?
Oh, I have a very good friend that I've known for about 50 years. And we can sit together in silence and just enjoy our friendship. Um, it means that and when we see each other, we just pick up talking. There's not a prelude to it. We just pick up talking and being together, um, and I have several friends like that, and I love it. It's as though the time we haven't seen each other hasn't really happened, and we don't have to fill in everything. We can actually just sit and lightly be with each other.
What role does love and affection play in your life?
Um, well, I gave a talk to the North, a story about I haven't been lucky in love, but like is the next best thing. And I kind of like being in like because being in love just uh there was so much pressure with it. And I and my kids tell me you should go out and find somebody again. You deserve more. And I'm like, you deserve to be in love, but I'm okay. Um, so who knows?
What
You
does
never.
love look like?
Ah, it's purple.
These are not easy questions.
I think it's it can be a nice thing if, if you're getting what you want from it. And I guess I'll go back to that love of my life. He wrote me a letter and said, "I don't think we should even live in the same country." I mean, it wasn't because he didn't like me. He didn't want either one of us to hold down each other's lives and get in the way of our lives. And I wanted to go back and live in England. I wasn't not liking the United States, San Francisco specifically. And I did get a postdoc in England, and he said, "I'm not sure we should even live in the same country." And that hurt me very deeply. And I thought he didn't love me. I think he did, actually. Um, I think he just said it because he thought that being in love meant that you stood in people's ways, in it could stand in their way. And I think being in love means being able to be with somebody and not stand in their way. And I would say my marriages, if I gave you one reason why they failed, I would date a guy, and I think that was good for their ego. But for whatever reason, I seem to be attracted to men who I think had uh, did not have good self images. Anyway, and I think it was great to have this smart, successful woman that they were dating. And it was really good for them. And then would get married. And then it's really bad for a man who doesn't have a good self image or doesn't have a job to have a smart, successful wife. And things would go downhill. So I don't know if it's really in just because of who I am. I sometimes think it's just not in the cards for me. But who knows? I'm not dead yet.
I'm sure the people that are listening will disagree. And love is in the cards for everyone. Um,
I love my friends, and I mean, and that's a kind of love. And I
that
love
is
my
true. That's true. And the cats from earlier.
oh yeah, my babies.
How do you feel about your relationship with your parents?
I feel good about it. I think it went through periods where it was uh, when I was growing up and they weren't ready. When I was like say in my 20s, 30s, and they weren't ready to let go. So I have tried with my kids to yes, I'm still your parent, but I can let you go and do things and not try to judge you or influence you. So um, so I inherited the house that I grew up in, or my brother and I did, and I painted mine in all bright colors. It's two apartments, and it was a moment of bringing happiness around the closure of growing up with my parents, having difficulty with them when I reached a certain age, and then coming to terms with that and having a good relationship with them when they both passed away. And so My brother said, my apartment is white and hers looks like starburst candy.
If you can complete the sentence, I wish I had someone whom I could share. That's the part you complete.
I wish I had someone I could share my special trips with, and I do share them with somebody, but not always. Because I've always said to myself, if you need to go someplace and there's nobody to go with you, would you rather not go or travel alone? But when I travel, I really enjoy traveling with somebody. I know I'm not answering all your questions.
No, you are. I think
Well,
that's,
part of it is that I've in the same mode where I say to myself, I need to be nice so that I'm taken care of. I've also said I need to not perseverate over things that there's no solution for and that make me unhappy.
I agree. That's good advice. Otherwise, it brings you down into the darkness.
Yeah,
It's a black hole.
yeah.
Yeah. Share an embarrassing moment in your life.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I have one. I'm a Marshall Scholar, and once a year we have a formal luncheon in a guild hall in London, the Goldsmiths Guild, every year, 3 years running. And I'm sitting at the table next to Sir Hugh Springer, who's the head of the Marshall Commission and subsequently became Governor General of Barbados. And the first thing I do is when they pour wine, I drink it. And I didn't realize you were supposed to save it for the toast to the president and queen. So I'm standing up with an empty glass. And the next thing I did was there was this very cute little tomato, cherry tomato with relish on it. I think we were having roast beef. And I didn't realize that the British ate very, very, very hot horseradish. And I picked up that little cherry tomato and popped the whole thing in my mouth. I didn't scream or spit it out. I chewed it and swallowed it. Tears were coming out of my eyes. And all I could think was, God, I hope Sir Hugh Springer isn't looking at me.
This was in the same evening,
This was that, yes, that evening. Yes. After I drank all the wine before the toast.
so you couldn't even chase it down or something.
No.
When did you last cry in front of someone?
Um, I think when my second husband left me, I went up to tell my good friend, my same friend who helped me turn off Match.com. I went in and she was the first person I told, and I cried in her arms. And I remember she put her arm around me and she was comforting me, and she said, "I bet you he told you over the telephone too." And I said, "Yeah, he did." She's like, "Son of a bitch." I'm like, I'm feeling better already.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you had to go through that. That's not a phone conversation. When was the last, sorry, go ahead.
I'm good now.
When was the last time you cried by yourself?
Um, um, wow, I'm trying to think. One of my good friends from childhood, who I always thought would be there, passed away very recently.
Sorry to
And
hear that.
yeah, I didn't cry, but I felt a lot of pain. And I didn't go back to my hometown for a while because he would always be there and I would always see him. It was always um, a thing. And before that, I can tell you of a time that I'm not a big crier in front of people. I think I was a crier as a child. And when my favorite cousin was dying of AIDS in the 1980s, and there was no cure, I would go in. I went to see actually the second Alien movie, and I walked in, and as soon as the curtains pulled back and the movie started, I started crying. It was just all inside of me, and I cried all the way through the movie. And then when it finished and the lights came on, my tears just dried up. And I think that was this cry that I was holding in. And all I can think is that these teenagers around me probably went home and said, "Did you see that woman crying?" She cried all the way through the movie. Like she cried when there was nothing to cry about. Nobody had died when she started crying.
It's out of fear. You could blame the fear. What if anything is too serious to be joked about?
um, I think hurting people is too serious to be joked about, and I don't like jokes that play on people. I think jokes about people dying.
Fair enough. If you were to die this evening with no opportunity to communicate with anyone, what would you most regret not having told someone?
Think I told everybody everything there is to know. I told my kids where my will is.
Okay. What would people say about you?
um, I like to think that they would miss me. I did get a beautiful tribute from uh, someone that I worked with about how unique of a person I am, and I like to think that I'm unique.
I agree. If your house catches fire and you get all your loved ones and the pets out, what is one thing that you can save? Or what is, sorry, one thing that you would save?
Uh, I think I'd probably save some paintings. I mean, first I was going to say, my God, my cats.
I made it slightly easier. They're already saved.
They're already saved.
Yeah.
Um,
It could be one thing though. It can't be all the paintings.
right. Hmm. I thought of having things next to the door just for that very reason. Okay, my grandmother's mahjong set from the
Why?
1920s. Because it's beautiful and it has a lot of memories for me. Remember, we didn't have a television. We used to sit and play mahjong. And,
Okay.
our family did things without television that were very special.
Yeah, I agree. Of all the people in your family, whose death would you find the most disturbing?
That's currently alive.
Yeah. Or in the recent past.
I mean, I would say when my father died, that was very, very disturbing and painful for me. And I remember crying and saying to my husband, "How do you get over it?"
Do you mind sharing why? Why it
I,
was disturbing?
oh, I was losing him forever.
Hmm.
He and I had a certain connection. Um, Oddly enough, I think my sister was my mother's favorite child, but for whatever reason, my parents told me their secrets. And so he was the first one who passed away. So that was hard.
What is something you struggle with?
Besides my weight and my looks and my chin,
You can't say those. Aging is a beautiful thing.
it is. It is. Um, I think I struggle with fear,
Of or
fear of the unknown.
all-encompassing fear.
Uh, Fear of the unknown. I
Okay.
mean, if I can go down a rabbit hole of fear, and and I've struggled with it in terms of, walking outside at night. So to me, Omaha is very safe. I walk between here and the university even late at night, but I get a little scared, ooh, so, um, and I have to remind myself, hey, you're walking down the street, it's all lit up. There's people all around.
What is something you wish people knew about you?
That's something I wish people knew. I wish my sister-in-law knew that I was really a nice person.
Why does she think you're not?
Because I was in medical school when I had kids.
Oh, okay. That's the only
I
reason?
just want people to think that I was a good mother, good parent.
Okay. And how do you think people can know that? Do you think if they knew your children, that's a reflection of your parenting?
It is in a way, although I can't they have their own personalities too.
Sure.
I think uh, yeah, to know them and to know their sense of right and wrong is to know something that I passed on to them.
Okay. And then any parting words?
Like I say, work on being nice. Don't be one of those spinster nuns. I'm sure nobody took care of them in the old folks' home.
Be nice. Well, thank you, Mary, for a wonderful chat. I feel like I got to learn more about you, and it's always riveting having conversations with you. I'm sure we'll have many more episodes where we talk about more niche topics.
And you.
That is up for debate. I like this. I'm on this side of the couch.
Oh, no, 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 no.
That side of the couch is much more difficult. I have to open up, which is something that is not easy, you know. Um, I could definitely think about it. But yeah, I think we could be in discussion about that.
Yes, we will have a discussion about it.
So